we're going to be checking out a video called The Strange Logical Reason Americans Refuse the Metric System by the channel Type Ashton. I love this channel. I've done reactions by this channel before, and links down below for that so you can check out the video yourself. Before we get started, I want to mention the channel sponsor. Got Raycon everyday classic earbuds. I don't know if you've noticed, I've been wearing these in the last few videos. They're comfortable. They don't go nowhere. So these bad boys have active noise cancellation, guys, capable of drowning out the most maddening of sounds. Raycon's everyday classics are your quieting sidekick. For the gym, work, phone calls, offering premium audio that goes where you go. So basically, it don't matter. You can just block everybody out. Block out the world. Be in your own little world so you guys can watch my videos without listening to everybody else, right? 32 hours of battery life, guys. Up to 8 hours of playtime. I charged them when I first got them just because that's what I do when I get a new device. I haven't charged them since. I've used the crap out of these. I'm just waiting for them to die. I don't know when they're going to die. The case itself will charge it. Multi-point connectivity. You can pair these bad boys to 2 different devices at the same time, which is great because I got my phone. That way I can just switch back and forth. I can grab, and they're small. The thing is, they're super small. This actually is smaller than it looks because there's a rubber case on the outside of it. You can get tons of different colors too. Carbon black, royal blue, rose gold, blush violet, and mint. Match your outfit. $79.99. Way cheaper than some of the competitive brands, and there's like no reason why some of the other brands should be as expensive, really, because they're doing it for $79.99, guys, and it competes with higher brands. Like the features, the sound quality sounds great. They sound better than my regular headset that I was using. 3 sound modes, guys: balance sound, bass sound, and pure sound. You just got to click this bad boy 4 times, or this one. You can do the button controls work on either side. Hold it down 3 seconds to cycle between your active noise cancellation awareness mode on and awareness mode off. And of course, play pause, just quick little tap right there. IPX4 water resistance, so you can go out there, get it all wet, drop it in the toilet on accident, and you don't have to worry about it. Although if you do that, you should probably sanitize it because that's gross. But your earbuds will still work. That doesn't take up much room at all, guys. And they just kind of like nestle right up in there. All cozy, real cozy, right up in your ear. Comfortable. I forget I even have them, honestly. Like I'll be over here doing reaction videos, editing, stuff like that. When I'm done, I forget they're there. Like the awareness mode uses the microphones that's built in, which is kind of cool to be able to get like the sounds around you and then pump it into the thing, and it sounds exactly like real life. Like if I take it out, it sounds the same. I don't know how they do it. So if you guys want to support the people that are supporting this channel, aka Raycon, get yourself a pair. You'll benefit yourself. You'll benefit Raycon and myself. Everybody's happy. It's a win-win-win situation, and everybody loves to be winners, right? So make sure you guys go to buyraycon.com/CharlieVest to get yourself 20% off the Raycon Everyday Classic earbuds, guys. So thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. And now I can watch this reaction video with quality sound. We're going to continue with the video, guys. Thanks for watching.
All right, I need to make a confession. I've lived in Germany for over 7 years now, and I still struggle with something. Hey Siri, convert
She's a doctor?
500 grams of flour into cups, milliliters of milk into cups, 60 grams of butter. Hey Siri, hey Siri,
Yep.
I still don't instinctively think about units and measurements in the metric system. Hey Siri, convert 425 degrees Fahrenheit into Celsius. Close enough. Virtually every country on the planet uses the metric system for weights and measures and utilizes Celsius for temperatures. Save for 3: Burma, Liberia, and the United States, where we still use miles, pounds, yards, gallons, inches, and Fahrenheit. But besides the fact that making the switch to the metric system would make conversions much easier, the United States' unwillingness to switch over to the metric system has come with serious consequences.
Our expectations for the success of the mission are remote at this point.
So why does the United States avoid the metric system?
See, it's crazy because it's like there's some stuff that's in other parts of the world that's the imperial system. Like I just did like on the last video, it was a reaction about the differences between garden hoses in the United States versus garden hoses in Europe. And the garden hoses in Europe are 3/4 inch, sometimes half inch, but they either way, imperial. Isn't that weird?
What is the true cost of non-conversion? And what attempts have been made to fix it? Well, let's take a look.
It's probably a whole hot mess now because you've already got this entire system built up to then switch over. Might be a task. Will be a task for sure. Not might be, it will be.
Copy, Bravo 997, thanks.
We have ignition and we have liftoff of NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter as we continue to explore the mysteries of the red planet.
Back in 1999, an international and extraterrestrial disaster unfolded above the Martian skies. The Mars Climate Orbiter, a robotic space probe launched by NASA, was at the end of its 9.5-month journey to the red planet to study Martian atmosphere and surface changes. However, it fatefully approached 170 kilometers, or 105,633 miles, too close to the surface, and the Mars atmosphere destroyed the spacecraft,
Jeez.
incinerating 3.5 years of work and over $327 million of resources. An
Is it because they were using imperial system or something?
investigation was promptly launched with the board finding that the primary cause of failure all came down to a discrepancy in the units of measurement. A single piece of ground software supplied by Lockheed Martin produced results in a United States customary unit, while a second system on board the spacecraft, supplied by NASA, expected those results to be in metric units, also known as SI, or the International System of Units.
Oh, that's not good.
This meant that each time the spacecraft balanced the change in momentum with a thruster burn, the spacecraft moved further away, not closer to its supposed location.
But to be honest with you, the chances of hearing.
See? Just testing it out because I wanted to pause it. I want to try to get used to doing that. Playing and pausing it just by pushing the button on the side. And you can use either side. I'll show you now. Push play.
From them will be greatly decreased.
No signal
How cool
from
is
the
that?
Mars Polar Lander,
Although
reaching
I
Earth.
will double check and make sure that it didn't play and pause my recording on OBS. That would be terrible. Okay, no, it did not. No interactions there. Perfect for streaming and recording, guys. Anybody out there trying to record or stream? Telling you.
And while
Get you a
this
pair.
specific example of unit conversion is quite frankly out of this world, it highlights the real consequences of unit confusion. After all, not very
yeah.
many people instinctively know that 1 pound is equal to 0.45359,237 kilograms.
Well, I knew that.
It just rolls off the tongue.
You guys, of course not. But no, it is crazy that the it's the translation in the units of measurement that caused an error, basically. Like that's and they're scientists. They're scientists. You would think that they'd figure that out, but no. They crashed that thing into whatever it was. It burned up in the atmosphere, got too close to the atmosphere and burn up and
Right? So how did we get here? Officially, the US uses a system known as US Customary Measures. It is an adaptation of the imperial system brought over during the colonial times when we were still part of the British Empire. The UK is now officially metric-based, but some of the old imperial units of measurement are sticking around there too, because old habits are hard to break.
yeah, they are.
Common examples include miles for road distances, pints for beer and cider, and stones and pounds for body weight.
Wait,
And
did they- hold on.
perhaps these measurements
Stones and pounds for weight. Well, I'm familiar with pounds, but stones? You measure people in stone? Like, how much does 1 stone weigh? That's interesting.
stick around because they're comfortable, familiar, and you can visually approximate it. A foot, although varying to great degrees, is more relatable than a meter, which is originally defined as 1/10 millionth the distance from the equator to the North Pole as measured from Paris, France.
All
An
right.
inch is about the width of an adult thumb, which is where we get the phrase as a rule of thumb. But the same familiarity is also true for the
Okay.
mile, which actually draws its roots back to ancient Rome, where it represented 1,000 paces. This
And this is why on YouTube and ad stuff in general, a mile, so 1,000 is milli, MILLE or something. And so CPM is like cost per milli, which is like cost per thousand. Cost per thousand views is what the advertisers pay per thousand views or something. Interesting. I didn't know that that was the same milli and mile. And
was, of course, revised over the years, thanks again to our British forefathers, who determined in 1592 that officially a mile should be 8 furlongs, which was the length of a plowed trench that a team of oxen could pull in one day. But you can copy and paste
okay.
this to other units of measurement too, whether it be for a pint of beer, a bushel of corn, an acre of land, or an engine's horsepower. But
But what about a dresser full of cheese? Or
some measurements are just truly frustrating. Despite the fact that the word ounce comes from a Latin word meaning 1/12th, there are 16 ounces in a pound, thanks in part due
yeah,
to a
what?
system developed in the late Middle Ages and the international wool trade. That being said, temperature measurement to me is a really interesting thing that us Americans have pushed back against. In comparison to Fahrenheit, Celsius is pretty
It
reasonable.
makes
It's an
sense.
easy unit of measurement to think about.
Yes, it
Both
is.
the freezing temperature of water and boiling
Although it makes sense because you know that like, zero's freezing, right? And like 100's like boiling or something, right? I don't know this, because I'm my brain is imperial. You know what I mean?
points are a nice round number 0 and 100.
Yeah,
In Fahrenheit, these are 32 and 212, which admittedly
sure.
seems pretty illogical. But the history behind why the United States still uses Fahrenheit thankfully makes at least a little bit more sense. Back in colonial America, Fahrenheit was really useful. And to be fair, at that time, there really wasn't a consistent or standardized way to measure temperature.
We should have two different unrelated scales of temperature. One of them will make sense to the entire world, and the other will be super random. Our great nation will use the random one.
But then a German scientist came up with the Fahrenheit scale when he invented the mercury thermometer in 1714. Yeah, that's right, Germany. You're partially complicit here too in this crime against humanity.
It's the Germans' fault that we're over here using these ass backwards measurements over here. Just joking. I love you guys.
Now, there are conflicting theories as to why we have this somewhat arbitrary system of heat measurement, but the most popular theory is this one. At the
Americans are
bottom, for the
dumb.
0 degree mark, he picked the temperature of a brine, a mixture of ice, water, and table salt, a common 18th century method of lowering the freezing temperature of liquids. He set 32 degrees as the temperature of ice melting in water. And for a reproducible high point on the scale, he chose the temperature of the blood of a healthy person. Fun fact, in this case, the healthy person was his wife, which he measured her temperature in her armpit and fixed it at 96 degrees, which no is not actually the correct average body
Doesn't
temperature,
make
but
any.
let's be honest, now isn't exactly the time to get nitpicky about accuracy of measurement. After Fahrenheit
Well, I
died,
want
his
to.
successors used the boiling point of water to calibrate the thermometers, and they set it at 212 because it retains the size of Fahrenheit's degree. And with the publication of his new system of measurement in 1724, Gabriel officially became a member of the Royal Society, the oldest scientific society in the United Kingdom. And as the British Empire grew in the 18th and 19th centuries, so too did the use of Fahrenheit and other British imperial units for measurement.
So it was because of a bunch of crazy British science nuts. And partially the Germans. Yeah, I'm gonna blame the Germans and the Brits for this, okay? that, can we do that?
But while the Brits were busy colonizing, the metric system was gaining popularity during the French Revolution back here in Europe. But until then, France had been home to a dizzying array of weights and measures, with up to 250,000 units of measurement in use in France alone.
Jeez.
And other nations and regions within those nations had their own ways of quantifying the world around them. This was a measurable nightmare for scientists who dreamed of an international standard based on some universal, unchanging constant. So in the late 18th century, Enlightenment-era Frenchmen saw a tantalizing opportunity in the political upheaval that gripped their nation. To this end, the French Academy of Sciences decided that the measurement underpinning society should get an upgrade as well. The new system was readily adopted by the newly formed French state, but the public took a little bit more time convincing. People were reluctant to give up the old ways of measuring since these were inextricably linked to local rituals, customs, and economies. To help, the government installed these standard meter bars all over Paris more than 200 years ago in an attempt to introduce a new universal system of measurement. If you want to geek out, you can still visit one of these last remaining meter bars on the ground floor of the window of the Ministry of Justice in Paris today.
Nice.
But eventually the use of the metric system became widespread, thanks in part due to rapid industrialization and the first of the Great World's Fairs, also in Paris, where nations gathered to showcase and compare industrial and scientific knowledge, something admittedly pretty tricky to do if you didn't have clear, standardized measures such as the meter and the kilogram.
Right.
Fast forward to the 20th century, and most countries around the globe had fully made the switch to metric. Even Britain, the very country from where our modern US customary system owes its inspiration, decided to go mostly metric for economic reasons in 1975. And other English-speaking former mostly metric.
All right, so we have the milliliter, 250 milliliter, okay, the 500 milliliter, the 1 liter, the 2.5, and the big old 5 liter there.
For economic reasons in 1975. And other English-speaking former British colonies like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand decided to officially make the switch to this system of measurement in the 1970s as well. So why hasn't the US made the switch to metric too? Well, interestingly enough,
why not?
we did.
No, we didn't. What?
Learn the metric way. It's a simple system based on tens that you can start today.
Since the 1975 Metric Conversion Act, official US government policy has designated the metric system as the nation's preferred system of measurement for trade and commerce.
What happened?
However, if you read the fine print, it's voluntary. Which means that while the government may nudge industries and individuals to use the metric system, in fact, they even set up a metric board to supervise the transition, it was pretty much set up to fail from the get-go. One example of this clunky transition was with road signs. Federal officials attempted to turn a new interstate in Arizona, I-19, into a metric poster child in the wake of the new law, even giving it.
But the thing is, you just pick one random highway and do that, you're just going to add confusion. Everybody's used to everything being a certain way, and then you just turn down this one highway and you're like, whoa, what's going on?
Kilometer markers instead of mileposts.
Wow.
A massive campaign ensued, filled with public service announcements and 16mm film strips distributed to classrooms throughout the country, readying the nation's schoolchildren for the inevitable switch to the practically universally used metric system. Unfortunately, it's turned out to be more of a gimmick than measurable change. Transportation officials never extended metric-only signage to the remainder of the federal highway system. Although, yes, you can still drive along this 102-kilometer stretch of road from the southern border to Tucson with metric signage.
It still has
today.
it?
But by and large,
What?
the American public had a major say in the metric transition, and quite frankly, a lot of people just didn't want to do it. Even though it is short-sighted, motorists didn't want to have to read signage in kilometers and kilometers per hour and then look at a dashboard with miles per hour. They didn't want to have to tune into a radio station to hear the weather report and hear the temperature read to them in Celsius. And a lot of organized labor unions fought the change as well because a new system of weights and measures would mean their workers would have to retrain. And I promise I am not on a one-woman mission to
But
hate on Ronald Reagan, but
the thing is, they did it in other countries in the 70s and it worked. So maybe it's not really what you're doing, but how you're doing it, right? They were just going about it the wrong way here and it didn't work. Whereas whatever country it was that did it in the 70s, it clearly worked. They did it the right kind of way. It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
he did, in fact, dismantle the metric board in 1982.
Oh, Reagan
just
did it.
7 years after it was formed.
Okay, so it's the Germans, the Brits, and Reagan. All right. Why?
Pretty much killing any chance that the US would switch.
He's an idiot.
Now, this is my own personal opinion, but I don't think that the US will ever fully convert to metric.
No,
At least
probably not.
not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yes, the metric system makes more sense. And
Yeah.
yes, the metric system is easier to use for conversions. But the
But you know what else makes more sense, guys? The Raycon everyday earbuds. Go get you some.
US system is incredibly consistent, even if it is consistently giving us headaches.
Yeah.
Almost every nation on Earth has fallen under the yoke of tyranny, the metric system, forced to measure their environment in millimeters and kilograms.
In a lot of countries around the globe, but especially here in Europe, they adopted
Oh,
the metric
boy.
system during a time where the country itself was unifying under many different institutions, standards of law, and governmental organization. Germany adopted it in the 1870s as part of the unification of the German Empire. Italy did it in the 1860s following the unification of the Italian peninsula. The Netherlands in 1816 as part of the newly formed Kingdom of the Netherlands. You catch my drift. But
Yeah.
while it might not ever become official, the US is already kind of secretly metric. US
Didn't tell
children
me.
are actually taught the metric system in school, typically starting in elementary school and continuing throughout high school, especially in science classes. Which is why
Well-
some American industries and professions use metric as standard.
Well, yeah, science classes, sure, but like not, anything that any of the classes, not anything else. Like it's not, I don't know, maybe now. I mean, I'm almost 39, so like, things have definitely changed since I was in school.
From engineers to chemists, physicians to pharmacists, the metric system is standard for scientific measurement and research globally, ensuring consistency and facilitating collaboration across international scientific communities. So if you work in the sciences, chances are
Yeah,
you're working in metric,
right.
even in the United States.
A melting pot of different measurements that will make Europeans throw little tantrums. In short, a land of liberty.
And despite the American proclivity for dubbing our way of measuring as freedom units, in 1988, US Congress passed a law which required federal agencies to use metric measurements, which is why the US military has also adopted
Okay.
the metric system, especially in the areas related to international operations and logistics. And private industry is largely on board as well.
So it's getting there.
In 1992, another bill required businesses to use metric for consumer goods too, which is why you find both units of measurement on most prepackaged goods sold in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, this actually has nothing to do with the product's ability to be sold in other markets. Here in Germany, those brands only
Well, yeah, because the United States food products aren't being sold in other markets, not because of the labeling, because of the crappy quality and all the unnecessary chemicals and the lack of care. That makes sense. Oh yeah, I can push this button.
list metric, which, yes, is frustrating because almost all companies have to create two separate products and maintain dual inventories, one to be sold in the United States and the other in almost every other country. But nonetheless, I think all things considered, unless there is real meaningful economic or social change that can sway public opinion, I think the US is just too set in its ways to fully switch to metric at this point. We have internationally accepted standardized conversion scales, and I think for a lot of Americans, fixing this issue feels more like a pet project than a real national benefit, even despite all of the great, worthwhile reasons to do it. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it down below in the comment section, especially given all the international audience members who watch these videos. I think it would be so interesting to understand how the metric versus imperial unit conversion impacts your life. And for my American audience, what do you think? Is it time to switch?
Well, yeah,
Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And
I'm pretty sure that it makes more sense to do metric. But what doesn't make sense to me is, why is the European garden hoses imperial? I don't know. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching with me. Go get you a pair of Raycon everyday classic earbuds, 20% off. Links down below. Buy Raycon/CharlieVest. Thanks for watching. Have a super fun, awesome day. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye.